This is Undaunted.Life, a man's podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Let's get into it. All right, guys, we got a special guest on the podcast today. His name is Sonny Sandoval. And so I am so giddy and excited about this one. So this was pretty nostalgic and I kind of nerded out a little bit. But if you don't know who that is, he is the lead singer of the multi-platinum selling and thrice Grammy nominated new metal group P.O.D. So P.O.D. has been making music for over 3 decades now. And they've sold 12, 13 million records worldwide during that time. But also Sonny Sandoval is the co-founder of a ministry group called the Whosoevers. And he is the author of the brand new book, Son of Southtown, My Life Between Two Worlds. And so the band P.O.D., and I talk about this in the show, is a very important band to me. This was a band that I found in middle school. And for a lot of you guys, the songs and the bands you listen to in middle school are some of the most formative things that you listen to. And so I've described on the show before that Metallica in elementary school was kind of that band that kind of really got me into rock. And, my dad was into classic rock and things like that. So that kind of formulated everything. But I even mentioned this on the show. Zayo, Living Sacrifice, Linkin Park, and P.O.D., in middle school, those were things that kind of gave me the guardrails for the music that I would go on and continue to listen to. And so I've been wanting to get Sonny on the show for a very long time, and we just weren't able to really work it out. But with the new book coming out, we were able to get it solidified. So in this discussion, we talk about, okay, why write a book, right? You're a lead singer of a band, why do a book? But then also, what was it like growing up in Southtown in Southern California? And what was it like kind of living between these two worlds of rock and roll and the church? And then specifically how his mom and dad, his relationship with both of them really affected how he saw Jesus and also him accepting Jesus. And really we get into the P.O.D. story and we get into how, from the beginning he's trying to figure out, am I going to be, is this going to be a Christian band or are we going to be Christians in a band? And what does that look like? How in the world did they make it mainstream, making the music that they were making? The whole Christian music scene where, people were just kind of pretending to be Christian, or if you didn't make Christian music that sounded like CCM or like hymns or something like that, how you were satanic and the devil. And obviously I've talked about that particular subject matter on my show quite a bit. And so we go into discussions about that. We talk about some of the early albums, the fundamental elements of Southtown that put them on the scene, and then Satellite, which basically made them go not catastrophic, I guess. They made them go worldwide. And so it was a very, very good thing. They sold tons and tons of records. It's their most successful album. But then they were invited to go out on the road with a band like Korn. And so here's this band full of Christians going out with a band like Korn when Korn was at their peak, but obviously not a Christian band by any stretch of the imagination. Got into some of the later albums, the stuff that they did with Modest Yahoo, him taking a year off and then eventually coming back to music and things like that. But we just weaved in and out of a lot of different discussions about the church and the effectiveness of sharing the gospel. Towards the end, you got to stick with me because we did a little bit of a lightning round thing. It was okay, if you could have one do-over on an album, which one would you do over? What's your Mount Rushmore of P.O.D. albums, your top 4? What's the one album you would leave for all humanity? What's the one song you would leave for all humanity if you had to delete the rest of your artistic catalog? And so we had some fun with those questions towards the end. But guys, just really, really enjoyed my time with Sonny. It's great to see what he's done in music, but also in ministry. So I'm not going to keep him from you any longer. So without further ado, let's get into it. Sonny Sandoval, welcome to Undaunted.Life, a man's podcast.
Hey, thank you, brother.
Man, I feel like this is a long time coming because I've created I got a short list, and I don't tell everybody the names that are on the list, but I've been trying to get you on for a few years here. We've been trying to work out the logistics of making that happen, but it's good timing because you have a new book out, which, guys, if you're listening to this on time, it is out now. It is called Son of Southtown. Okay, so this is your, I guess you could call it, debut book. And the cool thing about when you read the book, which, guys, we're not going to be able to get into all the details of the book today. That's why you got to go out and buy it yourself. But the subtitle of the book is My Life Between Two Worlds. Okay. And so that's where we're going to start, because essentially you set this up at the beginning, Sonny, and then you kind of take us in and out of that same theme throughout the entire book, which is one world is rock and roll and the other world is the church, right? The capital C church, as it were. So let's just start there, man. Why write a book? Why tackle that as a theme? Let's get into it.
That's kind of been, this obviously the book is just, it's my experiences and my experience alone. I knew when I did this book, I wasn't trying to, I've been wanting to do it for a long time. I just haven't had the time. And I think COVID kind of sparked a lot of new, fresh ideas, so solo music, writing a book, stuff like that. And I knew I didn't want to do how to do Christianity in 5 steps type of book. You know what I mean? It's Who am I to tell you? You know what I mean? You walk with the living God. These are things that you you converse with the creator of the universe and on how to walk your walk. You know what I mean? So this isn't I got it all figured out, Sonny Sandoval's way to do Christianity. It's just me being vulnerable and honest and saying, hey, this is where I grew up. This is, these were my possibilities. I had an encounter with Jesus. And I've tried my best to live that walk out. You know what I mean? But I also am in an industry that I never asked for. You know what I mean? I purposefully believe that I was put here because I said a powerful prayer, and that's when I got saved. I said, God, if you can use my life, then use my life. I didn't know that it was going to be in rock and roll. This is not something I'm comfortable doing. Getting in front of people, talking, let alone singing or performing. It's just something that I just knew, hey, if I have a mic, maybe my friends would see that I'm different, I've changed, and I just want people to know what I'm going through, and that this Jesus that I'm discovering is not the picture that the world has painted. And so that just happened to be, now we're in a 33-year career of P.O.D, and it's the ups and downs, the challenges, and made a lot of mistakes, had a lot of successes, but all this, even now, I'm sitting here still saying that there's nothing better than the love and the peace of God, and I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Well, and that's the thing. You use the word honesty. As I'm reading through the book, because I knew some of the stories and I knew some of the stuff that was being discussed, but like obviously you're giving us kind of a peek behind the curtain on some very personal stuff without going too far, without violating confidence of people that weren't there to defend themselves in the book or whatever. But it was a very honest take. And I feel like it really does go all the way back to Southtown. I love the title of the book, Son of Southtown, but the majority of your audience here is not from Southtown. I've never been to Southtown. We'll probably not be able to locate it on the map, but you do a great job of kind of elucidating what Southtown was like, what it was like growing up there. But even, you were kind of a straight-laced dude, but, you had some friends that were knuckleheads and, got caught up in crime and drugs and gangs. So just give us, a 30,000-foot flyover of what it was like growing up in Southtown.
Yeah, I think, your opportunities are slim. You know what I mean? Like I said, like you said, my friends, either you sell drugs, you're in a gang, or you go to prison, and or you work hard. You know what I mean? And so me growing up with my friends, there was a lot of trouble to get into, but it was my conviction. I came from a young family, and when God started to save individuals in my family, that was real to me. Just as real as the streets were, just as real as the possibilities of dying by 30, you know what I mean, or 25 was real. Watching God move in my family was real. So I always had a love and a respect and admiration for God. I just didn't know how to walk with him personally. And so it wasn't until my mom got very sick of leukemia and ended up passing away that, I prayed and I just said, God, I need my mom's Jesus. I don't need the world's Jesus. I don't need this westernized, TBN, buy $1,000 little bit of holy water type Jesus.
Yep.
They've got the world fooled, and that's not who Jesus is. And so I didn't buy into that. And so, God, he revealed himself to me, and that's a big boy prayer when anyone can say, God, show me who you are. Because when he does that, it's undeniable. And then you're like, okay, now I just got to deal with me, because I am as imperfect as they come. But I know that God is holy and that he's real, and I'm trying to walk with him the best that I can. And so that was my journey through rock and roll. I never thought we'd leave San Diego, but when we did, that was real life. That's not the four walls of church,
Well, let's go back to talking about your mom, because I mean, as you're reading the book, Sonny, like you could feel the feelings you had for your mother. Because it's one thing to say, hey, I love you, Mom, or to get up at an award show and say, oh, I thank my mom and dad. But we could really feel the connection that you and your mother had. And your mother did seem to be an especially special woman. But, as she was passing away, there's some poignant quotes from the book. Again, guys, you have to go get it yourself. But let's double click on that big boy prayer you had, because there are people in those times, right? The valley of the shadow of death, as it were, where they are either mad at God and they don't even think he exists, but they're mad at him if he does exist, right? And then there's people that are just desperate. Then there's other people that are like, all right, if you are who my mom and my grandma and all these people say you are, how about you show up right now? It felt like it was a little bit more like that. So let's go back to that moment where your life changed in a moment. It wasn't just because you lost your mom, your rock. It was because Jesus stepped in.
Yeah. And in either scenario is great. You can be mad at God. You have every, I mean, I don't know if you have the right to, but God allows you to, because he can
Mhm.
handle it. He can handle however you come to him. And if you come pissed off to God, God can handle it. He knows who
Look at the
you are.
Psalms, man. Look
Yeah.
at the Psalms.
I mean, look at where when Jesus took his disciples to Caesarea Philippi, everything that was going around. Even the disciples didn't want to go there because it was too sinful. And Jesus said, "Take a look at this.
Yeah.
Take a really good look and look what's going on." But I did that, and I was never angry at God. It was because I saw Jesus in my mom, and that was real to me. So even through her sickness and illness, and into her last breath, she had the peace of God, and so that was undeniable. My only thing was coming to God broken and saying, "Lord, if you take my mom, I don't really know what I'm gonna do. Uh,
Yeah.
I might hurt somebody, or I might hurt myself, but I want her to know that I'll, because she asked me, she just said she wanted me to get right with Jesus, because she knew that the way I was, and that if I wasn't saved, that I would not be in heaven when she died. And so that was real to me. And so on the day that she died, I went to that parking lot and I just said, God, okay, I know that I don't need anybody to convince me that you're real, or that you love me, or even more so that I'm a sinner. I know I'm a sinner, and I know you can forgive me. The thing is, it has to be you, Jesus. It has to be my mom's Jesus, not the world's Jesus. And I just said, God, if you can do that, then I'm in. And as I did that, I went back into the hospital. I told my mom, I said, go and be with Jesus. I'll be all right. And she ended up passing away not too much longer after that. But as I started to, read the Bible, and go to church, and really fall in love with God, that's when I said, okay, God, if you can use my life, I don't know if you can, because I don't, well, who am I? What do I have to offer? Except that I just want the world to know that who I'm discovering who you are, and the world they need to know that, because they don't know how good you are. And so before you knew it, I got asked to be in this band, and I had actually said no, because
Yeah.
it's not what I wanted to do, or ever had a skill to do. But because I asked God to use my life, certain things happened, and that, finally I said, I think I'm supposed to do this. But then again, I never thought I'd leave San Diego. I never thought I'd leave California. And all of a sudden, we just kept, we worked regular jobs, but we also played music. And not before you knew it, we worked our butts off. And then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
7 years later, we signed a record label deal that was unheard of for a band who was known to be Christian.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get into a lot of that because, every overnight success, there's like 10 years of hard work and nobody paying attention. You know what I mean? Like before anybody, we've experienced that with the show. But before
Yeah.
we get specifically into POD and kind of how all that came to be, you mentioned your father a few times throughout the book. And obviously, I keyed in on that. This is a
Mm,
largely male audience, a lot of dads in the audience, a
yeah.
lot of dads that had good dads, dads that had bad dads. You seem to kind of have a little bit of a on again, off again. Dad would be around, dad wouldn't be
Yeah.
around. Obviously, your mom was your rock. But actually, there's a short quote that I wanted to read. Sure, sucks for me as a young kid, but I get it. If anything, I think it taught me at an early age what kind of husband and father I wanted to be and what kind I was committed not to be.
Yeah.
And so obviously you can respect your mother and father, right?
Hmm.
You can honor them and not like them. You can
Yeah.
honor them and model yourself as the antithesis of who that person is.
Yeah.
But I'm always curious for somebody because there's usually a hang up, Sonny, when I talk to guys about the gospel and they're
Hmm.
like, man, I just can't imagine a more powerful version of my dad because that's what they see God as, right? Like heavenly
Yeah.
father, ultimate father. They see it as their father, just more. And if their
Yeah.
father was a real POS, then it's just like this isn't a good thing. You know what I mean? So did any of that kind of hinder you, I guess, in your understanding and seeking the Heavenly Father?
I mean, there's so many amazing qualities of my dad too. But even as I explained in the book, my mom and dad, they were kids having kids, or a kid. They had
Yep.
me. They
Right.
were they didn't know any better. And I don't believe in walking this life with all of these, with that victim mentality, or all these, woe is me type mentality, because when we find Jesus, we're a new creation. You know what I mean? So I don't have no hangups. But like I said, I think wanting that father figure, is what also made me connect with God. But it also made me want to be the best father that I could. And I'm not saying that I'm the best father. I'm just saying that that's what I want. I strive to be. I strive to be the best husband. So yeah, this is just part of my journey.
Okay, well let's go ahead and get into the music piece, because again, as you read through the book, I mean, you're talking about like, look, I'm working at a grocery store. This is a good job. Like, I'm just going to kind of work my way up. I'm going to have this blue collar living, but I'm going to keep my nose clean, and I'm just going to, live out my days in Southtown with a little family and my little slice
Yeah,
of, the American dream, right?
yeah.
But then, this microphone thing happens. And then, like, your influences of music growing up with, like, reggae and different types of
Mm,
rock and things like that, they kind of get melded with a little bit of family and a few other people sprinkled over the top. But, like, just
mm.
talk to me about really those formative days. I know you go into detail in the book, guys. You got to get the
Yeah.
book. But those formative days, like, it's one thing to go from, I don't like talking in front of people, to I'm going to scream into this microphone even though I don't know how breath works, and I
Yeah.
don't know that my nose is all jacked up, and like I'm having to scream into this mic. Like, how does that even get going?
Yeah, bro. I didn't know what I was doing. I still don't know if I do. That's why I can honestly say, and I believe 100,000% that it was God. You know what I mean?
Mm,
And the most amazing thing is that when we actually got successful, and people were like, "Isn't you think this is amazing that you guys are rock stars?" And I'm like, "That's not amazing to me. What's amazing to me is that somewhere along the line, I heard the small still voice of God saying, 'This is what you're supposed to do.'" And
mm,
and it's crazy because when you feel like you have a calling in your life and you follow it, you can go years and it's never confirmed. You know what I mean? It's
right.
never confirmed that this is what I was supposed to do. Is this something I wanted to do? Was this all me? Was this selfish? But it was proven later that this is what I was supposed to do, even if it was just for that certain season. But bro, I didn't know what I was doing, and that's why I can't even take any of the glory. When the first time I picked a mic and screamed into it, it was just like all I can do is just try. But I had to rely on the resources that I'm not even a metal guy. I liked
Yeah.
rock and roll, but I was more into street music. But I learned as I went with the guys because Marcos, my guitar player, he was the metal guy, and Trey was the jazz funk guy, and my cousin Wolf was more of a jazzy rock guy, and so
Mm,
I was learning. I loved all those music, but I was just learning as we went. But it was never, can we be the these great musicians? To me, it wasn't that way. It was just, hey, if you give me a mic, I just want to scream what I'm going through and what's on my heart. And obviously, you listen to the first albums, and there was a lot of such cheesy, immature lyrics and stuff that we did. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
we were kids, bro. We were
Yeah.
kids. And so, I've just tried to learn as we've gone on.
Well, Sonny, in a small way, we just recently went over 700 episodes of this podcast, and I go back to listen to some of the podcasts from the single digits, and I'm like, all right, well, okay, I definitely, okay, yeah, those are words, but that's not necessarily the order I would have put them in. So if you go back and listen to Snuff the Punk and Brown, like,
Mm,
and you're super psyched about it, that means you're not really progressing a whole lot as you make
yeah.
it through. But I would say for me, whenever I talk to guys that are kind of stuck, like, hey, I don't know if I'm living out God's purpose, because they think God's purpose is they having the word pastor in on their job title or whatever
Yeah,
on LinkedIn.
exactly.
But it's like, when do you feel like you're over the X? So that's kind of a military term. Like, we are over the X. We're about to drop this payload, and we're about to do the job we came here to do. Because if you're struggling but you still feel like you're over the X, that means you're in process, right? It
Hmm,
doesn't. And
hmm.
if you've arrived, right, you've gotten some success, maybe some promotions, maybe some accolades, some sales,
Hmm.
whatever. You still have to be over the X. It's when you cease to be over the X that God is probably communicating to you, hey, I've got something else for you, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to be better even if you don't perceive it to. But I do want to hit on something you were talking about, the Christian music scene, right? So y'all signed, this big deal, you're in the Christian music scene, but there's a couple of quotes I really want to dig into, because this is kind of like a bugaboo thing for me, because like I've talked to a bunch of people that tell me my music taste is satanic because, it's
Oh
way too
gosh.
loud and like all that kind of stuff. Don't worry, we're going to get there, but we're going to
Yeah.
ease our way in. So let me read a couple of these quotes. There were even a few Christian kids I knew who could get down with the best of us, but Wov and Marcos and the guys just wanted to play, and they didn't want to be confined to church basements and youth retreats. That's when I discovered the difference between Christian bands and bands that are made up of Christians. Okay, now here's another quote, short one. Humanity was made to appreciate beauty. When the church abdicated its creative role, the secular world filled the vacuum. So in two sentences there on that second quote, Sonny, you summarize something that I've been screaming at people because people are like, why is Christian music so terrible? Why is secular music so better? Why are Christian movies so awful? And it's multifaceted. But it's because the church, who should understand beauty and glory the most because they know where it comes from, they know the source of it, right? But when they abdicated the role of creating and tried to put creation into a box called contemporary Christian music or safe for television or TBN approved, then we get to where we are now, where no, most kids don't want to listen to Christian music because it just doesn't sound good when it hits their ear hole. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Bro, that's just religious thinking, you know what I mean? And that's the stuff that I hate about the institution of Christianity. Because when you think about the greats and all these composers and musicians and artists centuries ago, they loved God, and so even the worst of the worst fleshly artists, even in their inspiration, they ask, Michelangelo or anybody that said, hey, why did you create this? Because I love God. And it was real. Their lifestyle always didn't reflect that, but they weren't in this Christian box of hey, this is how I'm supposed to do everything. And so you have some of the greatest artists and musicians of all time, but once they put themselves into a Christian box as the years gone by, we've just become duplicates. And I hate that we've taken a back seat in art, in music, in so many different things because we're trying to fit this religious Christian mold that really it does ruin our creativity. You know what I mean? But I don't even think it's how it was ever intended. But we're also just trying to look self-righteous or even holy in front of the world and say, well, we don't do it that way. That's ungodly. It's like, what's ungodly about it? Tell me about it. Even show me scripture-wise where that's ungodly. You've just dumbed down everything. If you were to write, or especially now with technology and computers, in graphics, from the Bible, from the beginning of end, I don't think Christians would go watch it. They wouldn't go see it because
it's rough.
Dude, it's as real as it possibly gets. That's why I don't understand what Bible most Christians are reading. You know what I mean? We try to put it in such this neat, conservative package that's not really true. The gospel and the whole story, the gospel of Jesus, is as hardcore as it gets. You know what I mean? So, anyways, it was a learning process because, obviously you just get saved and, you're not ashamed of being a Christian or being saved, but it was just like Christians were just, when they're the ones who attacked us first. That's what was crazy. As they said, our music wasn't of God, our tattoos weren't of God. And so I've been battling this forever, and it took me so long, bro, to just let it all go. It took me a long time. And I think if anything, it was more Christians that made me jaded towards God. I had to have a whole different encounter with God, where God was just reassuring me, like, hey, just kick back, take it easy on my church. I know what's going on, and it's not all pretty and it's messed up, but you can't let those things get in the way of what you and I are doing here, right? The relationship you and I have. So, I mean, obviously I vent a lot, you know what I mean? But I've let it go, bro. I've let it go. But at the same time, as much as I love my Christian brothers and sisters, bro, I don't have time, or I don't want to babysit them. And they, because they're walking their walk with God just like I am. But you went to say what you said earlier is like, dude, we all have a calling, and it might not be a pastor. You know what I mean? If your job is to work 6 days a week and you still have the strength to get up on Sunday to go to church, God bless you, bro.
Let's go.
God bless you. You are amazing to the Lord. You know what I'm saying? God loves you, and you are no different than that guy with the title. So yeah, but again, that's religious thinking, that if we're not, a missionary, or we're not working in the church, sometimes we feel bad. We're made to feel guilty,
Hey guys, real quick. As you've heard me describe before, I am incredibly conservative about the supplements that I take. I spent years being terrified of putting different products in my body because I didn't know what they were made with or if it was going to be kind of fly-by-night companies using all kinds of crazy ingredients. So I've always wanted to partner with an American company that only uses the highest quality ingredients, and that's why I want to remind you that we are partnered with Jocko Fuel. Jocko Fuel is Jocko Willing's supplement company that is based here in the United States. So what are some of my favorite products that they make? So they make whey protein powder, and guys, they just released a cookies and cream flavor not that long ago, and it is ridiculously good. Make sure you use it with milk. It makes it even better. They also make clean energy drinks. I finally decided what my favorite was, and that's pink lemonade. That is my favorite of all their flavors. But they also have the best tasting greens powder on the market. I prefer the peach flavor myself. They also make pre-workout and ready-to-drink protein. So I actually mix the ready-to-drink protein in my boys' milk, and they love it. They're constantly like, Dad, banana milk, banana milk. So we got to hook that up in the Thompson household. But I also use their krill oil, fish oil, creatine, vitamin D, and their sleep aids. And guys, they've got new stuff coming out all the time and a bunch of stuff I didn't even have time to mention. Guys, if you take your health and wellness seriously, then you simply can't afford to put cheap and inconsistent supplements inside of your body. Try Origin out today by going to www.jockofuel.com. That's jockofuel.com. Use the promo code Undaunted to get 10% off your order. Again, that's jockofuel.com, promo code Undaunted to get 10% off your order.
Well, it becomes problematic, especially when you start throwing around very serious labels haphazardly, like satanic, right? So I have been reliably informed, Sonny, that there are such things as demon notes. So these are notes in music that are demonic. The notes themselves, as if... Okay, so, but we're going to dig in just a little bit further because, heavy music is satanic because words or something. But then you were talking about Cornerstone back in the early to mid 90s. And so that was kind of this big Christian festival thing. I was never able to go to it, but it's like, if you knew anything about that world, you knew about this. But I'll read this quote from the book here. When we arrived at the festival, we found more of the same. It opened our eyes that not only were there a lot of bands out there like us, but there were a lot of Christians that had the same mentality. They too were loudly and at times aggressively glorifying God. It was validating. It let us know that we weren't just lone rebels against the buttoned up Christian traditions, but we were part of a valid subculture within the true church. If people didn't like it, they were more than welcome to go sing their hymns up in the sanctuary. We'd keep praising God our way down in the basement. So I want to say this because there was a worship leader. I'm in Oklahoma City. There was a worship leader in Oklahoma City years ago, Sonny, that said, because I don't like contemporary Christian music, so what you would hear on K1 or Air One or whatever, K-Love, whatever, that I wasn't saved. He's like, brother, I don't think you're saved. And he was a worship leader, and I go, oh, I'm sorry, I don't think you can talk to me like that. I don't think you get to judge whether or not I'm actually saved. And then there are other people that are like, Kyle, when I've seen you at church or whatever, I don't see you throwing your hands up and dancing around and doing all that type of stuff. But I do want to go back to something. I wish I knew what show it was. But you guys were actually playing in Tulsa. This was at Kane's Ballroom. I don't remember who else was on the bill. I don't even remember if y'all were headlining. I'm pretty sure that you were. And I don't even remember what song, Sonny, but I remember being vaguely somewhere down front-ish. Yeah. And I remember lifting my hands in praise during one of the P.O.D. songs and singing. And also, if it's a band like For Today or Holy Name or back in the early Zao days, Living Sacrifice, when I'm experiencing those bands in concert, I feel incredibly close to God the Father.
100%.
I love hymns. I love psalms that are turned into songs. I love some contemporary Christian music. But to tell me that because my personality bends towards the aggressive, that I like aggressive worship music, that is music that you want playing when you're storming the gates of hell, that I'm somehow playing the devil's role. It's like, get out of here. But anyway, talk a little bit more about that.
No, bro, I'll just start out by saying he was wrong. He was wrong. But again, I can't hold these grudges because at the end of the day, he's just a dude. He's just a dude trying his best to be holy, which we get, trying his best to do what's right. But that's the problem, is that we have too many people telling the world how to be when they're not even doing it themselves, bro. Right. They're not even, it's just like you get saved on Sunday, you're baptized by Monday, you're in you have a million ministries by Friday and you're backslidden by the next Sunday. And it's just like, dude, just live your life and walk it. Stop telling everybody how to do it. Like, I want to see it. I want to see it, and there's times and place for all kinds of stuff. I believe if God puts something on your heart and it's specific and you need to communicate that, then by all means. But also I think you need a resume that says, dude, I've been walking with God for a long time. And those people, and you're like, dude, I trust this guy. He's got wisdom and discernment. He's been in the trenches walking with the Lord forever. But then I could also look at people and I'm like, dude, I've seen a million of you and all of my years walking with the Lord. And that's cool. I love you. And I listen to people. How many times I've had a word, from God, from this person or whatever. And it's like, thank you, brother. Does any of that resonate with you? I sure hope so, man. I sure hope so. If it's of God, it'll work out. It'll pan out. And if it's not, then hey, man, it was nice to meet you. You know what I'm saying? But that's very dangerous because we get it now because we've been on this journey for a long time. But you know how many people that are so vulnerable, bro, and it just takes that one time and they'll hold on to that forever. They'll be like, that one time that guy told me my music was of the devil, I've never walked into a church since then. Man, I want nothing to do with God. I'm not saying that's an excuse. I still believe God will reach the heart of that person. But they're going to hold on to that grudge to that person for the longest time, bro. And you know what? Again, what I can say is, dude, that's not freedom. I don't want to, I don't believe that God intends us to walk with him with that kind of mentality. Bro, I'm free. I am so free when in my walk with God, but it's taken a long time where, I've had to walk. I've had to make a lot of mistakes and learn that this is what's good for me and this is what's bad for me. I love certain music, but then there's certain lyrics. I remember listening to a Tool record years ago, and I was like, man, this music is powerful, and musicianship, everything is amazing. But the lyrics, it was killing my heart, and it was on a construction site, and I was like, I can't listen to this, man. To me, this is blasphemy, and he's mocking my Jesus, and as much as it even made me pissed, I was angry. Like, if I ever see this guy, I would choke him out. But then it actually made me sad. After years, it was like, this is sad because he doesn't know the goodness of Jesus. But I also believe that those that are mocking God especially in this day and era, are closer to finding God than those that just, I don't know. I don't know if God exists or he doesn't. I'm just cruising my life. But the ones that are angry and pissed off with God, bro, you're right there.
Because they're seeking, man.
God's gonna get
they're
you.
fervently seeking, and there's some sort of intellectual honesty in their seeking because they know inherently that we are not just highly evolved monkeys that figured out fire, pants, and language. Like that's not how any of this works. And another thing you're kind of talking about is guys like that got a word for you. Isn't the word always something that they think that you should change about you because it's not their style? And just I think about the people that think that only contemporary Christian music is worshipful to the Lord. It's like, bro, have you been to South America? Have you been to Japan? Have you been to an underground church in the Middle East? They're not playing Hillsong, okay? They're playing something that sounds like what's happening in their area, and they're making the music to the glory of the Lord. They're writing the lyrics to the glory of the Lord. But anyway, I feel like I'm preaching now, but I feel on the same page here because I got to get back to a late night when I was in middle school, okay? It's late night. Everybody, I'm at my dad's house. He's asleep. And I start flipping the channels, and I'd watch SportsCenter 2 or 3 times in a row, so I already know who won. And I end up on some thing where there's like skateboarding, right? So it's like some channel, and there's skateboarding going on. There's music in the background. And then all of a sudden, this is one of those shows where it's like they show skateboarding, and there's music videos, and then more skateboarding, then music videos, and then there'd be like some evangelists, talk about something, right? I hear the introduction to Southtown. And it's like this slow kind of building and then this is like 11 o'clock at night. I'm supposed to be in bed. I just became a Christian. No one else in my family is a Christian. I'm trying to figure out what all this means. So I know I'm going to church the next day. And then the introduction of that song hits. And I'm just like, whoa, wait, I thought this was a Christian channel. What is this? This dude has dreads. Those are against the rules. All the things, right? And I just remember feeling like something had changed. Because again, you're in middle school, so everything's important, right? Because you're an idiot. But like in that moment, I feel like it kind of shaped where I was going to go as a Christian as it pertained to entertainment. Because I can point back to like probably 4 albums that I feel like molded my taste in music. So it's Zao or Blood and Fire Bring Rest.
Yeah.
It's Reborn by Living Sacrifice.
Yeah.
It was Hybrid Theory by Linkin Park. And it was the Fundamental Elements of Southtown by P.O.D. Because the next morning I go to Sunday school and I try to tell my buddies about this band P.O.D. And they're like, oh yeah, we already know. And my buddy had the album, and he had the album with the original artwork, not the one with like the black window where you could actually write. So the original artwork, and then I take it home, and it's like, you know, there's hip hop on here, and then there's this kind of like, you know, Set Your Eyes to Zion thing, and then we're also rocking the party somehow. Like, how I don't understand what's happening in this album. But let's go back to the Fundamental Elements of Southtown. This is 1999. You guys had already released Snuff the Punk. You've already released Brown. Like, you've already got kind of this cult following of warriors, as you call them. But all of a sudden, you guys hit the mainstream. But you went with Southtown, that song first, when Rock the Party was going to be the hit, and everyone kind of knew it. So take us back to that era. When y'all were making the Fundamental Elements of Southtown, did y'all know that something fundamentally different was happening, that this was about to hit?
I mean, we didn't know it was going to hit. You know, we were just, you know, unapologetically being ourselves. And it was like, obviously when we wrote Rock the Party, we were like, you know what, let's kind of keep, you know, a little more universal vibe, open, more Beastie Boys kind of fun. Because, you know, we were, if we would have just made heavy records, you know, we were still into the heavy scene. And at that point, you know, we Southtown was a huge representation of who we were, you know, where we come from, our music style. And we toured that, but we knew that if anything, if we might have a chance at a little crossover, it would be Rock the Party. And I don't even know if it was the music per se. It was a lot of it was visually. It was just the video that we put out, you know, because we purposely included every walk of life. If you look at the video, we're in this bus and we're just picking up every walk of life, but we're trying to break all those stereotypes that we were already going through, from racism to religious boundaries to all these things that we're talking about. And we're saying, hey, we're taking everybody. All is welcome to jump on this bus and go where we're going, right? And a lot of it was hidden messages, you know. One of the main lines in Rock the Party was spread his love is the master plan. And it's like we knew that we had to be very mindful in how we came at it, because we didn't want to be lumped in as a Christian band. We didn't want to be just sold in Christian bookstores. We didn't want to play just Christian, you know, churches, and we weren't, you know. So we were going through all that. But then anyways, I think because we were just being ourselves, that the world was ready for that. But not only that, we always knew that whenever we played with all these secular bands, hey, if we were going to be vocal about our Jesus, then we had to be 10 times better than they were, because we knew that we were going to be judged because we said Jesus or because that we were Christians. And so, you know, I mean, you have to be excellent. And I think that record was excellent. I think it hit every checkbox that we needed at that point. And then, and obviously when we got in front of the MTVs and the certain Carson Dailies of the world, we were honest about who we were. And it was like, hey, this is where we come from, but we love Jesus, man. But we also didn't want that to close people's hearts, ears, and minds off to us as a band either, you know?
Right. Well, I remember being at that time, like rushing home after school to get in front of the screen for TRL to see if Rock the Party had made it to #1 yet and all that. Like, I was there for all that, but you know how it goes. It's kind of like right now with, you know, Netflix or whatever. It's like, it takes someone 3 years to make a show. You watch the entire season in a weekend and you're like, well, when's season 2 coming out? This is bull crap. It's like, brother, can you like chill for a second? So you got the Fundamental Elements of Southtown. You got some notoriety, quite a bit of notoriety. You're touring, you're making a good living, but now it's like, okay, we got the follow-up album. Even though you already had albums, right? Everyone looks at that album as kind of like y'all's first, like, you know, album, right? But then you got Satellite. I remember the run-up to Satellite, okay? 2001, I'm in like 10th grade or something like that, and I'm sitting in English class, and then on the day the album releases was the terrorist attacks that took place in New York City and Pennsylvania, okay? And so, obviously, everyone kind of has to the entire world shut down for a little bit, but certainly the marketing machine shut down. You know, Boom, which is a song that a lot of people, even if they don't know the name of the band, they know the song. that song got blacklisted on the radio and different things like that, because obviously you can't have a song called Boom around that time. You know, there was some sensitivity to certain words, obviously. So the lead track, Alive, became, I don't know, maybe y'all's biggest track of all time. But just, I guess I want to know, Sonny, did y'all have any doubts that you were going to be able to follow up the fundamental elements of Southtown? Because that album had so many different vibes that it hit to where it checked the box. Like there was a freestyle in the middle of one of the songs, right? And then you get to Satellite. It's like, okay, we got to put on our big boy pants and we got to release a banger. Like, was there any doubt that y'all were going to make it happen?
I don't think we had that pressure, man. I think the fact that Fundamental Elements sold 1 million copies, bro, we could have just quit then, because we had no idea that that was going to happen. Because it didn't start that way. When Southtown came out, it was such a slow ride. It wasn't until we got on MTV, like everything that you're saying, but that was proven and that was undeniable, because that wasn't. You couldn't makeshift that. People had to get on their phones. There were no cell phones back then. They had to go from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock Eastern time or whatever and get on their phones and dial up and say, my vote is for P.O.D, Rock the Party. So that was undeniable. And that just, again, shows you the power of the unity of the warriors and the people that loved our band, because it was because of them voting. It was undeniable. The producers and everybody of MTV had to say, who in the world is P.O.D? They just hit the top 10 total request live videos. Who the heck is this band? And so it was undeniable, bro. You know, it was undeniable. So they had to pay attention. And then when Rock the Party went #1, again, we were still like a no-name band. I mean, we were around for a while, but in the mainstream, we're competing against the Korns of the world and Limp Bizkit. So to have P.O.D come, that was insane. So we could have ended it right there. But when Satellite came out, it wasn't pressure. But I believe that we earned earned those 1 million records sold. And I knew at least with Satellite, we would at least do that, because we earned it, right? It just didn't happen. We earned it. And so when obviously 9/11 and all the different components to that, I mean, that album sold millions and millions of records. And then it ended up going across the sea, and we ended up becoming a worldwide band because of that record.
Yeah, because of that record, you're able to tour Europe, because, I mean, that's a completely different thing. There are bands that tour Europe that just can't, they can't sell out shows here, and the same kind of vice versa. It's just a little bit of a different world. But you brought up Korn there, and you brought up, touring with secular bands. I remember where I was when I heard that you guys were going to be touring with Korn. I was sitting in the Hastings parking lot in Lawton, Oklahoma, and I don't know how I got this information. But Sonny, again, young believer, I don't have anyone discipling me, very immature in my thoughts and no one to bounce anything off. I remember being crushed. I'm like, oh no, like my little metal band that loves Jesus, that I could, curl up and put in my pocket, right, and take with me everywhere into church, and no one would be too offended. All of a sudden, you're touring with the devil, right?
Yeah.
You may have been touring with 5 Marilyn Mansons. That's basically what Korn was like, right? You couldn't tell your parents that you listened to Korn if you also went to church. That's also against the rules.
Yeah.
But something came up here recently. There was a worship band that was playing a festival thing at Red Rocks up in Colorado, and they were playing with a group that's from a church that's very theologically kind of crazy. They do a lot of heretical things. And one of my buddies was like, hey, this worship band, you actually quoted a Shane and Shane lyric towards the end of your book. I forget what thing you were quoting, some worship song. It's a Shane and Shane song. And he's like, Shane and Shane shouldn't play that show. They should protest. And I was like, brother, if Guar and Marilyn Manson and Bohemian and Slayer wanted Shane and Shane to come on tour with them, and sing their Jesus songs, you take that deal 100 times out of 100. Yeah. But at the time, y'all were getting busted up for that decision to go and do that. So kind of take me through that, because obviously to be asked by Korn to come on tour is a huge deal. But then you have people that feel almost betrayed, like, oh, do you not love Jesus anymore? You just love touring with big bands? So take us through that.
Right. You said it, though. I think it's trying to keep us in a box. But it's like that with anything. I mean, some people didn't like the fact that we went mainstream, the fact that we were on MTV. They liked having us, and that wasn't even necessarily a Christian thing. It was just sometimes they just want you to be underground. They want you to be unknown because they know who you are. They don't want you going off and then having more fans and people loving you the way they do, But we were already receiving that before. I remember the first time we had played some big rock show in North Cali. We flew in, and I think Marilyn Manson was headlining it, and at the time he was the devil himself.
Right.
And so as soon as we drove into this parking lot, we see all the picketing signs, and we were like, oh, check it out, all those people picketing Marilyn Manson. And then as soon as we get closer and closer, all of a sudden we see that there was Christians picketing us. And they were saying P.O.D. is not of God, P.O.D. is of the devil, and all that, because in their minds, like, how could you play with Marilyn Manson? But my thinking was completely different. Bro, if I got a call from the Church of Satan right now that said, we want you to come and share your testimony, I would go. That doesn't make sense to me. And I'm not saying that any of these guys are the Church of Satan, you know what I mean? But at the time, but that shows you how even Christians, it shows how afraid they were, how afraid of their own shadows they are, that this person, but they did that with Alice Cooper. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Alice Cooper is full on born again Christian now. People don't know anything about Marilyn Manson, but everything that he's going through right now in his life is leading him straight to Jesus, dude. So it's like, or when people found out that, I think it was Brian Head Welch, he got sick of people asking him why he went back to Korn. And so in one interview, he said, they said, why did you go back to Korn? He said, just blame it on Sonny from P.O.D.
That's right.
Bro, you know how many DMs I got saying, I can't believe. And dude, they wanted to crucify me, bro. And I was like, this is insane. Because you don't get it. Or I've had pastors say, hey, do you think you can get me tickets to go? I wanted to go see Korn. And when Brian first went back, and I was like, yeah, I'll get you tickets. I'm not getting you passes, though, because I'm not going to have you go back there and friggin' weird everybody out, right? So I'll get you tickets, and you can go. And then they come back, and then they're like, yeah, it was cool, but what do you think about that? And there's so much cussing, and they're so offended by the littlest of things. And I'm like, you know what, bro? I go, one day, I said, when every single person and every band member of Korn gives their life to Jesus, this conversation is going to be meaningless, bro. It's going to be meaningless. And I believe
you got
that.
Fieldy and you got Head.
Yes,
and,
look at
the
what
rest
they're
are coming.
doing. Exactly, and even Monkey and them, they're sobered. And I'm not saying that's that's not because of Head. I'm just saying it was just him going back to his brothers and saying, I love you, and and I would talk to Head all the time. I was like, dude, you just have to let them see who you are, and they're brothers. They love each other. And but isn't God bigger than all of your thoughts? So I would just tell people when they're like, well, what do you think about Head and that? And I'm like, I don't know, bro. Pray for him. Pray about it. Stop. You don't need to go and do a sermon about it. And I don't want to hear your opinion. Just pray about it, bro. So it's
I
a weird thing.
remember. I forget who was wearing it may have been you in the Southtown video. Somebody was wearing a Blindside shirt. I think Glove was wearing a Zayo jersey or whatever. It was anyway. Doesn't matter.
I think it was me.
Okay, I can't remember who all had it, but Blindside. I remember one of my buddies hanging out with Blindside after a show they had done here, and I think they're from Sweden or whatever. And all those guys, like, they were cussing and smoking cigarettes and drinking beer and all that. And this was like a youth group kid. And for the first time, it wasn't like, oh, I can act out in these ways and it's acceptable. It's just that these guys were from a different type of Christianity than the South, than conservative rural Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And but those guys absolutely were in love with the Lord. And when you're in love with the Lord, you do some bad stuff like, hello, King David, murderer, rapist. Like, do we remember that guy? And he seemed to be an important guy in the line of Judah, if you recall.
Yeah.
So, all right, so let's get back in the interview here. So I didn't know whether or not to bring up everything that went up with Marcos and everything like that, but I feel like you did a really good job of covering it fairly in the book. And I don't want us to, on short time, to be, looking back at it. So I got a Marcos question later.
Yeah.
But we have, after Satellite, you've got Payable on Death, that album with a new guitarist. I happen to love that album. That's one of my favorite albums that y'all have done. I just love the sound of it. And so hearing kind of the in-between, trying to figure out the vibe thing is interesting to me because I got it. For whatever reason, I got it from the beginning. But you had some more album artwork controversy on that one. But I want to fast forward to 2006 with Testify. Okay, so I didn't realize that the artwork was like almost like a little middle finger you were given to some Christian bookstores. But again, you got to get the book. But with this album, you guys technically introduced the world to two artists that no one really knew about at the time, and that's Modest Yahoo and Katy Perry, of all people.
Yeah.
So Katy Perry did a little bit on Goodbye for Now, but then I knew about Modest Yahoo because I had his Live at Stubbs album, right?
Yeah.
My friends had passed that around.
Yeah.
And then I heard the two songs that y'all did on that record. So it would have been Roots and Stereo and Strength of My Life. And one's like super high energy, you know, let's lead off the album, kick it off. And then one's more like super toned down, a little like more kind of that chill reggae style. And I just remember thinking to myself, okay, Modest Yahoo either just needs to join the band permanently or y'all just need to like create a whole album. I could not believe how good y'all sounded together and how y'all's, at that time at least, because he has obviously gone off and done, you know, some different stuff, but how y'all sounds just kind of melded together. So how in the world did y'all get this, like, you know, Orthodox Jewish guy from New York to end up, you know, recording some records with you guys?
Yeah, and at the same time too, I don't even think he had released any albums. It was just that Live at Stubbs, and we knew about him because some old friends of ours, shout out to Matt and Andrea, they turned us on to Modest, and you know, already we were like, okay, we already get criticized by the religious Christian community, you know, our dreadlocks, and are we Rastas? Do we believe in Rastafari? All this stuff, and we're doing reggae music. You know, to them, even reggae music's of God, right? It's just a pot smoking music, so it's just silly. Anyways, in a way, it was kind of like let's do something with. Not only are we doing a anti-God music, reggae music. Let's do it with an Orthodox Jew. let's just take it over. Let's take it over the top and confuse everybody because he was a reggae artist. But I mean, all kidding aside, it was more like this guy is awesome. We love him. The first time I got his number, or he called me, and he was actually in Jerusalem at the time, and I just said, bro, we really love to have you on a track. But you know, the Roots and Stereo it's rock and roll, but obviously it has our elements of reggae, so that's why his voice blends so much. But after we did that track, we had so much fun doing it. We wrote Strength of My Life on the spot because we were like, we can't let you leave the studio without let's do a reggae cut. So we did it right there. And if you listen to his lyrics, he went right in, grabbed his Torah, he's taking Psalms, right, and he's writing them, and we freestyle, kind of really freestyled that day because we only had him for the day. You know, but that was just to show, like, dude, this is our love for our Jewish community. You know, this is our love for our brother here, and we've been friends ever since.
Yeah, I thought it was incredible. I mean, of y'all's entire canon, like, I mean, it's kind of hard to get into rankings, even though I'm going to make you do it here in a second. I feel like Strength of My Life is maybe my second favorite song y'all have ever done. And to realize how quickly y'all threw it together, because here's the thing. There are some times when collabs are forced and they feel like it. I'm not going to name any because I don't want to step on any toes or offend anybody. But it's like you get these two artists together and you're thinking, oh, this is going to be great. And it's just like, It was like this person clearly recorded their part in their studio at their house. And the band was over here doing their thing. And then some producer thought he was smooth enough to mush it together and it just didn't really work out. It just felt like the perfect collab. I just remember when I heard it, I was like, this is just perfect. But I want to kind of fast forward. You know, we've talked a lot about the music. But at some point, and you get into all the detail in the book. Again, guys, go get the book, Son of Southtown. It's in the show notes. But at some point, you take a year off from P.O.D., but at the time, you didn't know you were taking a year off, okay? You know, looking back, obviously, you can, you know, add up the months and realize how long you were gone. But although you weren't making music and actively touring and doing kind of the normal road warrior thing, you were still wanting to reach people for Christ, right?
Yeah.
But you didn't have your microphone in front of you like you normally did. But then you started something. You were one of the co-founders of something called the Whosoevers, which is one of those things that it's a non-typical gospel-centered ministry that most people that went to Bible school or some theological place probably wouldn't have came up with the idea of how you guys are reaching Jesus because of how raw it is, because you're reaching out to like kind of skate park kids, you know, the kids that aren't playing, you know, football and on scholarship, they're doing something else with their time. And so let's just talk about that year off and how you felt like God was pushing you to start something, which became the Whosoevers.
I mean, even in that time off was just me trying to reconnect with God, and you know, and it was just again, even falling back into that mind thought of like maybe this isn't of God, and maybe I wasn't supposed to do this, and maybe I should be a pastor. You start thinking all this stuff, and then, but at the time, I really just needed real people around me. Well, I don't need those that speak Christianese and people that can't relate to my life. And the thing is, I'm surrounded by lots of men and women that are the same way. They just want to love God, but they work in the real world. They're doing, they're artists, musicians, and they just want to love God and not thinking they have to quit everything that they're doing, throw away their entire life and go be a missionary somewhere, because that's what you do if you're a Christian, right? And so that it was the Brian Head Watchers of the world, Lacey Sturm, guys from the Metal Militia, my boy Ryan Reese, and it never set out to be a ministry. Like I still even have I still get an ick when I say that word, because the way the world views it, right?
Yeah.
It was just us it was more a brotherhood, a sisterhood, just saying, hey man, I need you, and let's walk together and let's keep each other accountable. And the moment we started to share our stories, it was obvious that that's what these kids were looking for. So we would go into these places, and just for the fact that we actually were in a band, it made kids listen to us 1 minute longer than they would, some straight-laced youth group guy that walked in and say, hey guys, and he doesn't know how to relate to worldly kids or just the world in general, because he's been, God bless him, he's been in the youth group, and that's awesome. I love youth pastors, but you can't just walk into a skate park or a rock and roll venue and start and just already relate to kids, And it's not like we set out to do that. It's just who we are. So dude, everybody just stay in your lane and be the best in your lane. And so for us, it was going into these rehabs. It was going into these detention centers and just saying, hey, this is who I am. This is my struggles. This is what I've been caught up in. This is what God saved me from. He's rescued me. He wants to deliver you. He wants to save you. He wants to be your God. And kids just listen to us. And then it just opened up into going into schools and all kinds of different places. And it's been, man, over 15 years now that this brotherhood has really just expanded all over the world now. And we have people, brothers and sisters that are running with the torch and going into schools and skate parks all over the world, giving away,
let's go.
Giving away stuff, feeding them and skating with them because they can, and then all of a sudden, once they gain the kids' respect, because you see these guys doing all these amazing skate tricks, the kids they love them. They're like, I want to hear what this guy has to say. And the moment he gets on the mic, he just says, I love you guys. Thank you for coming out. I just want to tell you about Jesus real quick. These kids listen, and that's how simple it is. It doesn't have to be these big crusades and all this stuff, although those are great too. But these are our people. These are our culture that we can just go in. And I would probably feel just as uncomfortable walking into a Hillsong spot. I would probably be just as uncomfortable because I'm used to walking into a rock and roll venue. And those are my people. Those are my friends. Those are the people that I love. Yeah. And those are the people that I want to see come to know God, man. That's it.
Well, Sonny, it's multiplication by division. And what I mean by that is recently I was studying through Acts, and you've got Paul and Barnabas that are arguing over John Mark because John Mark was either homesick or something's going on with this dude, right? And so they end up having a prolonged conflict, and then they ended up splitting. And you would think in a worldly context, oh my gosh, bad news, they've split up. This has been a divorce of ministry. No. They wanted to do ministry differently. And guess what? They did, and the gospel was spread. So guys, don't hear what we're not saying. We're not saying if you go to a straight-laced Southern Baptist convention, a crusade, that's bad. We're saying to the street kid that likes to skateboard and, get in fights or whatever the thing is, it's just different. Like, bro, do you know how many people I've shared the gospel with recently that listened to me and later said, bro, I just saw your cauliflower ear and I figured, you had seen some things. And I was just like, okay, I can't help that my face looks like this, but it does look like this. And I didn't get this way from doing my taxes. And so this person was willing to give me a little bit more of a listen. You know what I mean?
Perfect example, bro. Perfect example. They see physically, I know who this dude is because I'm that too. And they'll listen to you. But if a tax guy came in and said, hey, let me tell you something, they'd be like, dude, I'm not good at math, bro. You know what I mean? I can't. And maybe not. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe that's the perfect person. But that's up to God. It's not, we're not knocking, the way they've done in the past. And if that's your gig, then more power to you. I just don't want those people coming us, and I'm sick of them saying this is not of God, because time and time it's proven that it is, bro, and you were wrong. And unfortunately, you're too self-righteous to even come and apologize, or even to say, dude, I was wrong, or even see it that it actually could be of God. And there are some that are like, man, that's awesome. There's people that see it, that have been, we call them the old wineskins, and they finally look and be like, you know what? I love what you guys are doing. I support you 100%.
Well, hey man, because I'm a Christian and I get asked to speak at men's events, and we have the #1 podcast in the world for Christian men. Like, I'm constantly asked about men's ministry, and I used to just answer those questions, but now I'm like, I don't even like the term anymore, because when someone says men's ministry, they think a bunch of dudes sitting in a circle sharing their feelings and crying during Bible study. And I'm not saying if that's what you're doing that you're not honoring God, but I'm saying a lot of the dudes that listen to this show, that doesn't speak to them in the same way. These are dudes that need to be broken down physically before I can reach their minds, before I can even start to reach their spirits. And so it's a different way of approaching the gospel. And we see plenty of examples of that as we read through the New Testament. So just, I guess, to put a little bit of a bow on this before we do a little lightning round stuff, I plan to make you super uncomfortable during the lightning round. But you do come back to the band. So does Marcos. But Wub is not a part of the band anymore. And you're kind of, you kind of kept it gray in the book as to why. The new music that you guys have put out with Veritas and things like that, it's not really featuring a drummer like in music videos and things like that. It's just kind of like, But you mentioned, I think the phrase you used was new, individualized mission mindset. When you came back into the band, you realized that I am one member of the band and we don't have a band mission. We all have individual missions within this band.
Yeah.
But that obviously is going to affect how P.O.D. makes music moving forward as we continue in the streaming revolution. I mean, you guys came all the way from, demo cassettes all the way through CDs, and now you're in the streaming revolution. But for you guys, what does the future of P.O.D. look like, especially with, Marcos is back and Trey's there, but, the drummer thing's kind of, it's weird and no one really knows exactly what's going on. And where's Wub? But what does it look like in this kind of like next chapter of Payable on Death?
I mean, bro, it just kind of goes along with the theme of the book that we're in a moment, and we're in a moment of life that we're walking through, and this is real life. I can write it different. We can speak of it differently, but dude, we're going through real things together, and some of us are having a harder time in this season of life than others. And for that reason, my cousin is not with us right now. The seat will always be his. He's the drummer of this band. He's one of the original members, and we love him. But he's in a season of life right now that he's figuring out things. And so that's why we leave it there. And so, but at the same time, we feel like we still have some music to get out in the meantime. We've been doing this for so long. And as far as we're going, nothing stopped. I think we put out one of the best albums that we have in a long time, and we're going to be touring all of 2025 into 26. So nothing is slowing down for us. It's just adapting to how this industry has changed, how music has changed, everything that you said, streaming, all these things, everything has changed, and we're just trying to adapt as we go. But nothing's changed, but you said individually, because everybody, we're at different places in our life, and not everybody, we're not all the same, and that's okay, because other people shine other ways. But for me, I do a lot of things in my community. I love being a part of outreaches that go out to young people and to people in general. But that's just my heart. It's still the other guys' hearts as well, but they have other things that they do in different ways. But for me, this is just how I represent my faith in Jesus, because some people are too busy talking about it. And I think the world is tired of people talking about it all the time. You know what I mean? It's like you can say, oh, that person's starving. Well, I'll pray for you that you find some food. Or you could actually go make them a sandwich. It's either way.
Go be the food.
Either way. So on me, because I still had someone hit me up recently, like, why don't you guys say Jesus, and why don't you guys give an altar call at a show? It's like, because it's a metal fest, bro, and no one wants it. Like, it's easy. But I do things in my normal day, everyday life that say, I love Jesus. I represent Jesus, and Jesus loves you. And I just try to be active in what I do. And that doesn't make me any better than anyone else, dude. That's just me I'm just grateful. I'm grateful to God. That's it.
Well, man, we're at our allotted time, but you got another 5 or 10 minutes for some lightning round questions? Okay.
Of course.
So if you could have one do-over, so this could be a song or an album, but if you look back at everything you've done, okay? So as an example, Zayo, their self-titled album, all the drums are on a electronic drum set. And every member of the band except for Jesse like hates it. They think it sounds terrible. But if there's one artistic do-over that you could get, what would it be?
That's too hard, dude.
No. See, this is the uncomfortable part. I've just been your buddy for the last hour. Let's go.
It would be that Stuff the Punk record. Like, I look back and I can't hate on it too much because we already covered it. We were young and immature and just, but I would love to redo a lot of that stuff lyrically, lyrically, yeah.
But man, it still gets you going. It's still fun when you listen to it. Okay. All right. Now we got to go to your Mount Rushmore of P.O.D. albums. So while you think of your 4 albums, I'll give you mine. Okay. And I've got a reason for each one. So Fundamental, Elements of Southtown. That's just nostalgia. That's my favorite record y'all have done. Satellite, biggest record that y'all have done. So it's got to be up there. Payable on Death. I loved the new sound. I was worried to death. And then I listened to the album and I was like, oh, thank God. It sounds great. And then, surprise, SoCal Sessions. I love that record so much because when I'm not feeling like I want to elbow people in the face, I can put that on and vibe with it. Okay. So those are my 4. But if you had to pick 4, right? 4 albums for the P.O.D. Mount Rushmore, what would they be?
Right now, top of my head, I would say, Fundamental, Satellite, Murdered Love, and Veritas right now.
Okay. Now we're gonna make it even more uncomfortable. Okay. You have to delete from the collective memory of humanity every album that you guys have ever made. And 500 years from now, when we look back on this time in history, there is only one P.O.D. album that has made it through antiquity. What is the one album that you're leaving for humanity? You get one.
Oh, man, that's so unfair.
Yep. Because it is. That's why I'm asking.
I mean, for all reasons, it would have to be Satellite because that's our anthems. I mean, and I'm not saying it's because of that record. It's just how the world viewed it and how they took those songs and those songs are anthems. Everywhere we go around the world, there's always a handful of songs on that record that we play every single time because they become anthems. Yeah.
All right. My one would be Fundamental, but I get why you do yours. Yeah. So, but now we're just going to say, screw it. We're burning the ships here. You leave one song for humanity, right? So everything else from y'all's catalog, the dozens and dozens of songs, the millions of records sold, all the singles, all the what, you get one song that humanity gets to remember your band by. What's the song?
Southtown.
It's gotta be Southtown, guys. You knew that was going to be the answer. You absolutely knew. Well, man, I've got other questions, but we're out of time. I thought this was awesome, but I actually do want to read. I don't think I'm ruining the ending for anybody, but I do want to read the very ending of Son of Southtown because I think it puts a fine point on the conversation we've had and also the work that you've done. Way back in my beginnings in Southtown, I felt the options were limited of where I might go and who I might become, but I was determined not to be a statistic. God took that determination and put me where he wanted me to be. That is true to this day. Life may have given me some bumps along the way, but I'm loving and trusting where God has me now. And as always, my trajectory is on to the next adventure with him. So, Sonny, I feel like you've embodied that through your career, obviously, unless you were just completely fibbing the whole way through this book. It seems like you've embodied that as well. But that's all for me. Is there anything else you want to get off your chest?
No, bro, I'm so grateful that we took this time, and this was awesome. Thank you for having an honest and awesome conversation, man. I look forward to doing it again, man. Appreciate you.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, brother.
There you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed my time with Sonny Sandoval. But before we let you go, we are going to do a quick resilience boost. At Undaunted.Life, our mission is equipping men to push back darkness with content that forges spiritual, mental, and physical resilience. The links I've got for you today. I've got a link to Amazon where you can buy your copy of Son of Southtown, which is out right now. But I've also got a link to P.O.D.'s website and the website for the Whosoevers. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Wherever you're listening to this, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a positive 5-star review. If you want me to come speak live at your event or on your podcast, just shoot me an email to info@Undaunted.Life. That's info@Undaunted.Life. Follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook, and check out our website for everything else, including how to donate to keep more content like this coming your way. Just go to www.Undaunted.Life. And as always, we want to thank the band Holy Name for allowing us to use their music for our content. The music on this podcast is their song Perpetua, which is off their self-titled debut album on Face Down Records. The links are in the description. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Remember, Keep pushing back darkness. Keep forging spiritual, mental, and physical resilience. Keep seeking the Lion of Judah.